Lakeland Currents, your public affairs program for North Central Minnesota. Closed captioning is made possible by Bemidji Regional Airport, serving the region with daily flights to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. More information available at bemidjiairport.org.
Welcome to Lakeland Currents. I'm your host, Todd Haugen. For our Currents show today, our guests are with the Beltrami, with the Bemidji Veterans Home, the new Bemidji Veterans Home. One issue I want to talk about a little bit, and I've seen different names for the facility, but they are the new administrator for the Bemidji Veterans Home. Kevin Gish is with us for our show today, as is Scotty Allison, the former Beltrami County Veterans Services Officer. Gentlemen, welcome to Lakeland Currents, and we're glad to have you here.
Thanks, Todd. Good to be here.
Well, Kevin, first, the new Bemidji Veterans Home, I've seen it online described as the Minnesota Veterans Home - Bemidji. Does it have an official name at this point?
It is the Bemidji Veterans Home. Okay. The reason we refer to it as the Minnesota Veterans Home Bemidji is to make emphasis that it is a Minnesota state facility. It's one of three new facilities that are being built by the state with both federal and state dollars, but it will be a state veterans home, meaning that all the employees will be state employees.
What's the status of the veterans home right now, Kevin?
The $64,000 question, Todd. It continues to move along. Our general contractors are telling us it's 98% complete from a general construction perspective. It is a large project. It's 80,000 square feet, almost all one level, 72 private rooms, private baths. And it's been delayed on a number of occasions just because the number of surveys and regulations and requirements, because it's going to be an unbelievably beautiful home. I cannot wait to show it off. However, it's got to be safe. It's got to meet all the regulations, not only State Department of Health regulations, but the Federal Veterans Administration regulations as well. And that's what's leading to some of the delays, but it's going to be incredible when we can open it.
Best guess currently when it might open?
So opening has a few different meanings to us. Opening is getting my staff in there, which we anticipate in the next few weeks. We anticipate at this time, written in pencil, that we will admit our first group of veterans mid-January. However, again, that's pending any delays on electrical, fire marshal, Department of Health regulations, and there's just a litany of things that we need to go through. But that is our best estimate at this time.
The process to bring about the Bemidji Veterans Home was a lengthy one, and a guy that has a lot to do with that is here with us today. Scotty Allison, former Beltrami County Veterans Services Officer, currently retired. Scotty, welcome to Lakeland once again.
Thanks.
The process took 10 years?
Oh, longer than that. My memory serves me right. It dates back to 2005, 2007 era. Some people in the community had an idea about, we should get a veterans home up here because, number one, we're geographically isolated from any other veterans home, the nearest one being Fergus Falls, which is about 150 miles away from here. Plus, at that time, we had approximately 30,000 veterans living in the I call it the northwestern sector of Minnesota. But you take the Beltrami County and the 15 counties that are up this way, we had about 30,000 veterans, so there was nothing here for them. And then you had also, the travel time to either Fargo or to Minneapolis or St. Cloud, the hospitals. So we had a really good story to tell about why we should put a veterans home here in Beltrami County, specifically in Bemidji. There was a lot of discussion back in the time to put it elsewhere. There was some people that thought it should go into Bagley. There was some people who thought it should go into Norfolk, but it ended up being Bemidji because, quite truthfully, we have the great facility of Sanford. We also have the Bemidji CBOC here, the community-based outreach clinic. So we have a lot of the things we needed for our veterans that would be residing in the veterans home.
This was a joint effort, a huge project involving a lot of elected officials, wasn't it, Scotty?
It was. So let me go back in time. I mean, the stalwart person who really had the lead for most of this was Joe Vinny. Joe was the spokesman for this. And if you know anything about Joe, he was the one who brought, when he was the director of the the juvenile center here. He was the one that brought that facility here. So Joe had a lot of experience in gaining resources and talking people into building a facility. So he was the one that was kind of the impetus behind it all. But then another gentleman who was kind of big in this was a gentleman named Ralph Morris, who he was the one that could be able to do all, he was part of all the studies that landed themselves to show that Bemidji had a great need for the veterans home. And then third, it was Jim Lukacek, one of the county commissioners. He became the chair of the board for the veterans home, and he was the main lead for that. So I got hired in 2012 as the county veteran service officer. And one of the missions I was given, and one of the reasons why I was hired, was to get going with this project, to make it a reality, which required, obviously, a lot of time going back and forth with either Joe Vinny, Ralph, or Jim, going down to the cities, going to St. Paul and testifying, talking to politicians, gaining support. And over the course of that time, so you go from 2012 to when we gained authorization for the facility, which was, I think, in 2019, there was a lot of politicians over those years, whether Democrat, whether Republican. You know, all of our politicians in this area were very supportive of getting the vets home. It just took a matter of when the legislator was right to do that. And it became right for the legislator to do it when there was other cities that were competing for the veterans home, but then it became a consortium with Montevideo and then Preston. I believe that's where the other one's at, Preston. When we gained the political advantage of those two sites and the legislators that support those two sites, and then with our legislators, then it became much more reasonable for the Minnesota legislator to support building veterans homes, new ones in the state of Minnesota. Additionally, we had some bed spacing that allowed 3 facilities to be built. The federal law does require that only so many bed spaces are given to veterans homes in a given state, and that's dependent on the population of the veterans. So the number of veterans in the state of Minnesota, like most states, is actually declining. The load for recent vets in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple tours, the number of vets has just steadily been decreasing. But the requirement for vets homes has kind of been going up because the population has aged that much more. So that's why we were able to get 3 veterans homes in the state of Minnesota, plus a lot of support. But in the local area, Matt Blissy's and so on, they really did help quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And, we had, whether it was the Senate or whether it was the House, we had a lot of support. Nobody ever begrudged building a veterans home. That wasn't the issue. It was always about money.
All 3 communities that you mentioned are getting veterans homes too. Those are being constructed, right? Montevideo, Preston?
Yep, they are. Bemidji's, again, will be a 72-bed facility, all private room, private bath. That's the same footprint that Montevideo is getting, and Preston is a 54-bed. But yes, I was literally on a call this morning as we are all checking in with each other on where we are and our progress. So.
Right. Scotty, you mentioned a lot of names, folks we both know. I definitely wanted to have a show about the Veterans Home here on Lakeland Currents, and it can get difficult to narrow down the list of people that you're going to be chatting with. But you were a big part of this, and veteran services officers are huge for veterans in each county. What does a veteran service officer do, and what in your background brought you this line of work?
Yeah, so I wish Shane was here today. He's the current county veteran service officer, but he has another thing he has to take care of, training. So the county veteran service officers in the state of Minnesota, required by law, there's 87 veteran service officers, 87 counties. The state law does require that, and any assistance they need to support veterans. But really, they're kind of like the journeyman of veteran services, meaning they have a broad knowledge of various vet services support activities. So whether it's doing pensions, whether it's doing applications for compensation, medical applications, they just do a lot of things. And of course, when we were trying to get the vets home up here, we had the support of the Northwest Association of County Veteran Service Officers, plus the Minnesota CVSO Association. So at every level, we had great support for that. So I would just say that if you're a veteran and you haven't visited a county veteran service officer, you probably ought to do that, at least if nothing else, to get your discharge recorded in your county, so that if something happens to you, then your family can know where to go and get the documentation that's required to get veteran support.
And some veterans maybe don't even know that there are veteran services officers.
Yeah, and a number of states don't have them. As I understand it, going back in time now, about a little over 50% of the states do, but about 50% of the states don't. Some of them have it centralized at wherever their Department of Veterans Affairs is located. That's kind of how they do it. But in other states, there's just nothing. And so the veterans kind of have to deal with local regional offices, and depending on where you live, the regional office might not even be one in your state. As a matter of fact, the veterans from here typically deal with the Fargo regional office because of the way they've kind of broke up the state of Minnesota. So like the northern western sector goes to Fargo, and then if you go to the east, Duluth area and stuff like that, they end up going to Minneapolis. So then, of course, you've got St. Cloud and that area that all goes to Minneapolis. So the main regional offices are in Minneapolis and Fargo in our area. But you should, if you're a veteran, regardless of the era, you should go in and see a veteran service officer. And if not a veteran service officer, then at least one of the supporting veteran service officers that work for the veterans organizations. Like the Disabled American Veterans, American Legion, Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and they have trained people at the different regional offices. They go through basically the same training as county veteran service officers. In some cases, their training's enhanced because of what they do. So, go see them.
Right. Most of your military service was spent in the Army, Scotty?
I did 3 years in the Navy, then I did 28 years on active duty in the Army, and I did 2.5 years in the Reserve Forces here in Minnesota with a unit down in Brainerd, Minnesota, the Alpha Company 367th Engineers.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for all those years that you spent as Veteran Services Officer and your hard work on this worthy project.
All right.
The Bemidji Veterans Home is going to have a lot of different features, right, Kevin?
Absolutely. It's going to be, again, I can't wait to show it off. The basic layout, Todd, is 4 households named after area counties. We've got our Beltrami, Cass, Hubbard, and Itasca, and I've promised my friends in Clearwater County that we'll get some room named after our friends in Clearwater County, John Reuter and that group of the in-country guys. Every one of these households will have 18 private rooms, private baths. Each household will have its own dining area with its own kitchen for made-to-order breakfasts. If the vet wants to come out at 9 a.m. and bacon and eggs, that will be prepared there and in an intimate setting in that maximum of 18 residents in that household. There are some things that the households will share, but most of them are fairly self-contained. They have their own living room. There's a quiet room that families can have to visit outside of some of the melee that can be the sounds amongst a home like that. Each household has a spa with a whirlpool tub, which can be used for therapeutic as well as relaxation purposes. There's a lot of glass in the building. It's built to have a North Woods feel to it. Some people have said, are there going to be stuffed fish on the walls? And I said, well, I don't think we're ruling that out, but right now it does not. But yeah, it's just a really lovely place. There's a huge multi-purpose room with huge vault ceiling that I'm encouraging, Steve Jewett and others, the VFW, the Legion, the DAV, come and have your meetings out there. Pandemic, notwithstanding, if there's safety considerations, obviously that is first, but the auxiliary, come and have your meetings out there so the vets can participate and be there and feel a part of their veteran community. That's extremely important, and we will have the facilities to make that happen.
Kevin, that would have to be after the formal opening, I would assume.
Absolutely, Todd. Yes, the formal opening now, because we are looking at a midwinter opening for actual residents. The grand opening, so to speak, will be in the spring, where we've obviously got a lot of legislative, governor, our state senators, House representatives. They will all wish to be there, and we will wish to have them there to celebrate this. All this groundwork that Scotty and Ralph and Joe and others that did so many years ago is going to be. It's going to come to a really nice fruition. It's going to be an absolute piece of pride for Bemidji.
Can I say something?
Go right ahead, Scotty.
So, back in a little bit in time, when it looked like it was going to be this could be more than, just kicking the old can down the road until we get a vet's home. We were asked by the state legislator to raise matching dollars. So if the local communities would come up with monies, then that would make it much more palatable for the state legislator to provide monies, because what was going to happen was the federal government, when we proposed building a veterans home here, when it went to the federal government, any monies that we raised would be matched by the federal government to a 2/3 ratio. So 1/3, 2/3 ratio. So for every dollar we would raise, they would raise 3. And I say all this because as we started the fundraising activity, myself, Joe Vinny, and Jim Lukacek, we would travel around to the various counties trying to get them to kick in money, to the various service organizations throughout the area we were talking about, basically from, way up north, Lake of the Woods area, Baudette, over to, the far western sector of Minnesota, and then running all the way down to Brainerd. So we would go out to these different organizations when they would have meetings or county board meetings and try to talk them into helping us with the funds. But K-Mac, when she was the board chair, not the board chair, the county manager for Beltrami County, they had a meeting and Beltrami County came up with $1 million. Pating, so we were ready with that. That was $3 million when we went to the federal government. Then some of the other counties started kicking in. We had a total of 6 counties provide fundings. We had numerous service organizations, the VFWs, the Legions, the auxiliaries, the DAVs. And then we had private citizens provide funds. Hey, Scotty, I want to drop off $50 or, $250. And every dollar was getting matched. And we also had some trusts, some local businesses, the banks, and I forget what's that big one. There's a big trust fund here in town, the Nielsen. Yeah, the Nielsen Foundation provided a big hunk of money. So we raised a total of, it was, I believe, around about $2.3 million between all the different entities, which meant that already we were sitting at $7.8 million with the federal government. So it became much more reasonable then for the legislator to kick in money and then take that all of it together, because it had to become in as one big project. So all 3 homes came in as one big project to the Department of Veterans Affairs at the federal level. And that's when it was approved. Ultimately, also with accelerating costs because of a lot of reasons, when we got approval, it was 2019. What hit then? COVID hit. So, a lot of things kind of got a little bit messy. Construction costs accelerated. Supply chains were damaged. There was just a lot of things that happened. And so the state, after we had submitted to the federal government, if we were short any funds, then the only way to get those funds were either raise it locally or get it through the state legislator. And the state legislator, pushed by the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs and Commissioner Herkey, they pushed it so that we continued to get funding so that we could build the home. So when I say it was Ralph or it was Joe or it was Jim or it was Scotty, who knew? There was tons of folks that were actively involved at that point. So I don't, you say, Scotty, you had a big piece of this. Maybe so, I had a piece of it, but there was a lot of other people that had a lot of pieces to it.
Sure. Kevin, the Veterans Home is going to be for men and women, obviously.
Absolutely.
Plenty of female veterans these days.
Yeah, it's and trending more that direction in one of our veterans homes, because I don't know what folks think of when they picture a veterans home in their heads, but I can tell you that the youngest veteran at one of our existing facilities is a female in her 40s. So what you have to be, and Scotty knows this far better than I do, but it's pretty simple to be eligible. You have to be an honorably discharged veteran of any of the branches of the U.S. Armed Services. You have to serve at least 180 days of active service or be discharged for injury or illness, et cetera, before that time, and be a resident of the state of Minnesota. That is it. Because of that, and as Scotty said, a lot of people are choosing, thankfully, to get their paperwork in, working with the county veteran service officers, et cetera. But we do have at this time, and I don't want this number to scare anybody because it's actually a success story, but we have 265 people on our wait list to get into that home, to a 72-bed home, if we can staff it. And that's probably a whole nother story or discussion to have. But not all those folks are ready to come in today. We had a discussion before we went on air about an individual that I think you both know that is on the list to get in, but isn't in need of nursing home level care yet. And that's wonderful, and that's success. But the home will be available when that person moves up on the roster to be offered a bed.
Yeah, so the home itself is not, it's not an old folks home, because that's what some people call it. Oh, it's the old vets home. That's not what it is. It's really a medical facility if you think about it. You have to meet the requirements for certain living functions before you're allowed to go in there. Now, as far as what veterans can go in there, all veterans are treated equally going into the veterans home, meaning it's all based upon when do they submit the application. Also, it's not based upon priority of need. It's mainly based upon, because the accepted rule is that anybody that makes it onto the list and makes it through the list they have the need to be in that veterans home. So you can't say a person with this disease versus this one should get into the vets home. That's not how they do it in the state of Minnesota. And I don't believe that's how they do it in all the other vets homes in the different states.
Those veterans that are admitted to the home can bring their spouse?
Let me answer that this way. Spouses are eligible by federal law. However, the state, and Scotty mentioned Commissioner Herkey, who is now retired. We are looking for a new Department of Veterans Affairs commissioner, but Commissioner Herkey had a number of 10%. He wanted no more than 10% spouses in these veterans' homes. So we are managing our list accordingly. They are all private rooms, private baths, so husbands and wives will not move in together into the same room. We may be able to arrange being neighbors depending on how our rooms are filled in the facility. But that's, to answer your question, yes, they can move in, but as Scotty was noting, it's all on date time stamp of when you apply. But often, as I've seen on our list, husbands and wives apply at the same time, so they're right next to each other on the list. We already have in our initial 20 to 24, which is what we're going to admit to get through all the necessary surveys, federal recognition first and foremost. We have a couple of couples, so to speak, on that initial group, and the husband saying, I'm not moving in without my wife, so move me down, and we will accommodate that, obviously.
So admission is based on need, given the condition of any given veteran? And
no, it's not based on condition of need, because the needs have to be there anyway. It's just basically you put your name on the list, you go through the list, and then you come to the top of the list, and you're offered a room at the facility.
Any veteran can do that?
Any veteran can do that. So, I mean, you may find some veterans who were combat wounded who have significant needs for that home, but let's say it comes to that point, well, they have to put their name on the list. They don't automatically get a buy to go into the next room that opens up.
They won't move above anybody else who is already on the list.
That's correct.
Can there be a point, will those veterans be able to live in the home the rest of their natural life?
Actually, that is the plan. That is the model. So unlike anything I've ever seen in my healthcare leadership history with nursing homes specifically, where there's an intense and understandable, rehabilitate, get their meds squared away so they can go home, then go to a less intense environment. Maybe that's back to assisted living or back to their home. That is not the goal. Generally, we call this, they will be there for their final tour.
Well, we're nearing the end of our show today, and I'm sure there's more things you each want to bring up. When the opening is decided upon, Kevin, I'm sure there will be a big celebration, a big open house that people are welcome to attend?
Absolutely. We will shout it from the rooftops. Until then, though, I would respectfully ask folks to be enthusiastic, but not overly enthusiastic. Don't come and walk into the home. Don't come and knock on the doors and want to see it, because again, it's an active construction zone still at this point, and we just can't open the doors and let the community come in. Also, people are being so generous. I get calls almost every day. Dad has a lot of paintings of wartime memorabilia, and he's got 200 books that he wishes to donate, and our auxiliary club up in Baudette has made 50 quilts, and we want to bring them down. And at this point, I have to say, I'm not saying no, but I'm saying not now, because literally we would be overwhelmed. And the generosity is incredible. I mean, money is literally falling from the sky, Todd. We get a check from the Hutchinson, I think it was the Hutchinson VFW, and I apologize if it's a Legion, I don't recall, but a check that says buy TVs for every one of your veterans rooms. Boom. Sure. Democrats, Republicans, everybody coalesce around the service for veterans, and it's so refreshing to see.
You need more applicants for workers?
Always, yes. min.gov/careers. Every job that we have open will be posted there, and we're doing well with our recruiting. But right now, we're actually in our hiring phase to get our direct care folks for our first vets.
Scotty, briefly?
I would just say this home is for our veterans in this northern part of Minnesota, but it could be veterans from any part of Minnesota.
Gentlemen, thank you for being on Lakeland Currents for this edition of the show. It's an exciting project. Can't wait to see it when it opens up.
Thank you very much, Todd. Great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin Gish, Scotty Allison. Hopefully we can chat again.
Thank you, Todd.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching Lakeland Currents. I'm your host, Todd Haugen. Hopefully see you next time.